It is April 23rd, and taking a break from chasing Keanu Reeves around the Matrix is a sentinel named Chris Steinecker. Looking good there, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I shaved, buddy. I'm ready. I'm ready to reopen whenever it's healthy and safe to do so. But I wanted to get that grub off my face, and I wanted to get back to work today. So I appreciate letting me show up. I'm looking good today, and you do as well. By the way, I'm not drawing any aspersions on you.
No aspersions taken. Thank you.
Great. So, Joe, what I really am focused on and why I have shaved, because I am focused on how do we get to reopen again? The national media is talking about what Georgia's doing in South Carolina and also Vermont, and they're all doing it in different models. But, I know we're a few weeks away, but we've got to get into that mindset. So I really, again, want to keep stressing that our businesses that are in the relief mode right now, just trying to get resources, need to start transitioning into a reopen mode, which requires a whole nother set of their brain cells, a whole nother category of things to do. And what I'd love to do is just share with you one graphic really quick, an infographic that helps kind of begin to understand what we all have to think about. And then as the days go on, Joe, maybe we can start diving into these as well. So let me share with you really quick what I've got. And this was created today by the CDC. And so we've talked about on our show, let's make sure we're listening to the experts who are going to keep us safe and healthy and strong. And so they put this together. And what this really helps us understand, if you can see on the left side of your screen, these are the requirements, the gates that the federal government has kind of put into place for us. So those are the gates we already knew about, which is our numbers trending down. And if we can get out of that part of it, where the actual data and science start to show that it's becoming safe for us, then we can get into this center area where that's how we reopen. That's how our businesses reopen. And you can see there's a lot of tactics in there on the first box. And then there's a lot of policies that we all got to discuss on the right side, because we all have to discuss what is our store or our business or our restaurant's policy for masks, for how do you promote healthy hygiene practices? What are they going to be for you? I don't think you're going to see the federal government or the state government tell you how to stay safe. They're just going to make sure that you have these practices in place. So it's up to you as a business owner to determine what your policies are going to be. As long as you can show that you're practicing these safe procedures, you're going to be allowed to do that. So you want to keep your customers and your employees safe. This is how we're going to start thinking. So creating a policy manual for this is going to be really important. That's something we're going to tell you to do, and start really understanding these efforts. Like we talked yesterday with Don Trell about disinfecting. Maybe now is the time for you to disinfect if you're completely closed, so you can check that off your list before you get on these other ones. So I want people to start thinking ahead. We're still maybe 3 or 4 weeks away from actually hitting the streets or more, but it's time now to get into that mode, Joe. And keeping people safe and healthy is what our chamber really wants to do. We want to get back to business, but only in a safe and healthy way.
So there are a lot of items on the list, but they all look like mostly common sense. I don't think there's really anything that's going to be too heavy on folks, just as long as they're diligent and it's moving some chairs around and a few documenting a few things, but that's all a very reasonable ask, I think.
No, I think it is very reasonable. So I don't want everybody to go, hey, the government's trying to tell us to be unreasonable. I think they're trying to tell us to be reasonable, but also they're trying to tell us to use our common sense. And so part of this is going to be communication, Joe. And that's why I'm so pleased that the Catalyst is out there helping our businesses understand what those expectations are, and kind of changing the narrative from this relief to, oh my gosh, to now, here's the rules, guys. Now let's get good at the rules and understand it's going to be incremental to get to where we used to be. But there's now a game plan, and we all have to do it. But being safe is the number one thing. And I really still think we should focus on health and safety. But also what I'd love to do today is talk about one of our icons in St. Pete who's keeping us safe by creating those kind of PPEs that we're looking for. So I'd love to introduce, this is Mighty Mo, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome.
I'm gonna kick things off by saying that Mo is, what she's doing now is just an extension of what she's done for years, and I can't tell you nonprofits we've jumped in with to consult with or do work with, and it's Mo helped us with our website, Mo helped us with our communications, Mo helped us with Exmo. By far the most consistent name I hear attached to nonprofits, attached to doing good work around the city, both in projects she makes on her own, and they make on their own, and being called, stepping up when asked is Mighty Mo. So true hero.
You know what, Joe, you're going to make me cry because that's so true, and it's real. And I have that same story. I've been the chamber president now a little over 10 years. I started with not a lot of creative help around me, and I ran into Mo. I don't remember how we connected, and she was just saying, "Hey, whatever I can do to help, love to help you." And then I talked to her about Mr. Sun being asleep, and the chamber used to use Mr. Sun in all of its promotions back in the 50s and 60s. We created that icon, and Mighty Mo brought it back to life for me. She looked at some of the old materials and she brought it back. And in fact, Joe, she even did something else for me that's really important. And I want to share one more screen with you if you don't mind. But this is what she did for me. First of all, she made Mr. Sun. She protected Mr. Sun, right? So, I mean, a lot of people get sunscreen protection, but who's protecting the sun? It's Mighty Mo. And so that's the kind of person we're dealing with today. So, Mo, we know a lot about you, but tell everybody else who you are and what you do.
Oh, you guys are too kind. I appreciate it. And thanks for having us here. So Mighty Mo Creative is our main business that Lance and I have, and we've had it for about 17 years. We do graphic design, websites, creative services. And then about 7 years ago, we started a 3D printing company. So I have a couple of the 3D printers printing behind us. Lance is, we're all kind of geeks, and he wanted to check out the new technology with 3D printers then. And I said, well, we need to figure out how to make money. So we started a separate company called Tangible Labs. So things you can touch and feel, something that's tangible. And one of the first awesome projects we did was make Mr. Sun a little nerd bag that we 3D printed. And because we didn't really know what we were going to do with the printer at the time, we would make fun giveaways for companies, or we would do badges for tech conferences, stuff like that. So we did a couple St. Pete versions. We did just the Pelican with the St. Pete on it, and then we did the Mr. Sun. So we started doing that for a couple of years, and we did prototyping, and someone had an idea for an invention. They needed an actual prototype. So that's what Tangible Labs does. And actually I have a new business to announce that you guys don't know about because we've kind of been under the radar, but we are a chamber member. We took over an existing brand that we helped to create about 8 years ago called Go Union Printing. So we're a very niche commercial printer, and we're a union shop. So we mostly work with other union organizations, teachers unions, firefighter unions, and political candidates running for office. So that's been an extension of a lot of the graphic design work we've done for years. And back in 2005, we met Carl Nurse when he was president of Kona, and I was neighborhood president at the time because I can't not do anything. So I did the newsletter, and then of course that ended up me being president of my neighborhood association for a couple of years. But met through Carl, met Darden Rice when she was first running for office, and was just absolutely, we hit it off, fast friends. And I became her volunteer coordinator on her first campaign. And I overheard her and Carl talking about needing to do postcards for their voters. And then I said, well, you do graphic design, we can do that. So we've been very quiet under the radar, doing a lot of work for political candidates over the years. And then this opportunity came up in 2018, the end of 2018, to take over the operation for Go Union Printing. So we've been doing that for the last year and a half.
Great. And it sounds like all businesses are still somewhat running during this COVID exercise?
To some degree, yeah. Currently, we have 4 of us total. Jordan's our full-time employee. He's been with us for, I think, 11 years now. So he's been working from home. And he has 2 printers as well at home. So he's been printing nonstop for us with this other project we'll talk about. And we have another employee that we just brought on. So she's been working from home, helping to process orders. And then Lance and I have been coming into the office. Live together, work together. We got all our germs anyway. So, right. But we shut down the office, mid-March. We were pretty adamant about having a sign on the door with a big sticky that said, "Do not touch our door handle." We have a cart outside for pickups and drop-offs. So we were trying to be very cautious from the beginning.
Great. And puppy dog's all right?
Yep. Coco is my Belgian Malinois. She is a handful, and she's great. She comes to the office and keeps the solicitors away. So that works.
Good.
But real quick, I also want to say that I serve on the board for St. Pete Makers, which is we'll get to talk about in a little bit, but also have the great privilege to serve as board chair for Friends of Strays Animal Shelter. And it's been a relief to know that things are operating great and the staff is doing a great job. And normally in years past, I would have had to worry about it, be distracted and focus my energy on that. But they're in such great shape and doing great things for the community that it's a joy to hear and see the updates they do on Facebook and stuff.
Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, you're helping all kinds of folks. So you talked about just, you were doing 3D printing, and then somehow you stumbled in that, hey, you can help with the PPE effort. So tell me about how you got into this business now.
Yeah, so for prototyping, usually we're helping an inventor, and there's the maker community. Lots of people share ideas back and forth for different things, and then probably the beginning of March or mid March, started hearing chatter on Facebook and stuff about healthcare professionals not having enough equipment, and the big thing was the N95 masks. So I got on some thread, and someone was posting a link to a doctor out in Billings, Montana, who had developed a 3D printed mask that he thought could be a good substitute. So this would be an N95 that some sort of filter material would go in and then be held in place. So we would, initially we started printing samples, but I was concerned because it's knowing 3D printing and knowing it's not always the final use. It's usually meant for like a prototype. I honestly didn't feel comfortable that this would be safe enough to then give to people that were going to be in harm's way dealing with COVID. The other thing is the fit is really crucial. So like other people were putting foam strips and we didn't really have a way to source the elastic bands. And so I just didn't feel comfortable doing these things. But then we saw on some other threads where people were printing face shields that could be an additional layer of protection for nurses and different staff. So one of the first designs we worked on, and again, this was open source, so we didn't create these. These other makers were sharing what they were doing elsewhere. So this was a face shield that just has plastic transparency sheets that can be hole punched to put in. And this is, but it needed an elastic band, and it kind of stuck out a little far. So some of the healthcare professionals thought it was too far from the face, and spray and everything could come down. So now another design that we started focusing on is just a little simpler. It's just a little 3D printed crown. So on the machines behind us, we're able to print 3 at a time per machine every 2 hours. So we can get 6 done in 2 hours. Okay. And this was a design by a gentleman in Sweden who then did a design that Americans could use, because it's basically 2 rows of 3 hole punches. So you can use just an 8.5 by 11 transparency sheet. We bought ones that are pre-rounded on the corners because they can be sharp if you don't round them for the nurses and staff. So it just gets hole punched twice, 2, 3 hole punches, and it can be pretty easily assembled. So I guess it was right around April 1st, I set up a Google form on our St. Pete Maker website asking for people to sign up who needed to request PPE. And we just started a spreadsheet, and I posted on Facebook and started getting orders right away. And then at the same time, posted a link to get volunteers for 3D printers. So our core group of about 5 people, I knew between us and 2 other friends that have printers at their house, we could do a couple, maybe about 50 a week. We had no idea what the demand was going to be, but now we have about 15 printers working, and we're able to do a couple hundred a week. And to date, we've delivered 2,120 face shields.
Wow.
We just started doing 100, they're called ear savers, I guess, for nurses who wear, or for healthcare professionals that aren't used to wearing masks all day long, and the elastic cutting in on the ears. There's a little 3D printed strap that could go on the back to help adjust that. So we've started printing those as well, and we've delivered over 100 with more coming in pretty much all the time.
How are people finding you to purchase those? Like, how are you in the stream now of the?
So we're actually donating everything. And we put a donation link on we have one on Tangible Labs and one on St. Pete Makers as well to help offset the cost of materials. Especially because a lot of volunteers, we don't know what their work situation is, what their income is. So we didn't want it to cost anything for anybody. And they just had the time, and their printers were laying idle, and this was a way for them to get involved. So right now it's just word of mouth on our Facebook page. After I did the first post and a couple of friends shared it, I met, I think there are 3 volunteers within a mile of my house that I've never met that also have 3D printers. And friends were like, Mo, this is someone I think you guys, like, how do you guys not already know each other? But here, get involved. So we're definitely making some great connections and meeting really awesome people. And everyone and I keep saying all the emails I send out to the volunteers, I just say, we're better together. And it really, that's all about St. Pete too. But the 3D printing community, they definitely want to do something. And I know there are other sources for some of the material, but we're getting requests from shift nurses, the midnight shift. They feel like they're getting left behind. They're not getting in. They're an actual COVID unit at a hospital, and they don't even have the equipment that they feel that they need.
So are these individual healthcare workers that are contacting you, or is it institutions, or both? Or
So mostly it's individual nurses, or like an office manager for a doctor's office. There are a couple times where it's been more of an executive or like a purchasing director. We also got connected with a group in Tampa, so that when they have a big order that they get from in Pinellas, I volunteer to take it, and then if they need help, then we sort of pass back and forth. So that group is called Print the Curve Flat. So it's a Facebook group, and they actually now that has grown to be a national website or national Facebook group. So there are people all over the country, and they log in and they have like zone captains or something like that. I'm not really sure how it works, but I'm mostly connected with a group in Tampa, and we share files back and forth. But they've got hundreds of printers, and so like today I emailed her and said, okay, we have 340 shields on hand. I don't have an active order, so if you guys need it for a big order over in Tampa or Hillsborough, let me know and we can get it to you. So it's everyone's just stepping up and helping each other.
Man, that's beautiful. And it's so beautiful that there's so many others with 3D printers willing to do it as well, and that they lived so close to you, or that there's more of them. And I thought you knew everybody in St. Pete that had a 3D printer, but now you're finding more of your people too. And but it sounds like we can help though too, because if you're donating, is how do you? I mean, it's an expensive process for you to do this. So how are you sourcing the resources to do it?
So the biggest issue was delayed shipping for the filament. So I don't know how well you can see it on the printer, but it's a spool of plastic that melts to make the shape in. So each spool is about $25, give or take, depending on where we source it. And I had orders in at Amazon that weren't showing up for 3 weeks. And so I sort of panicked. And once we got some donations and I was able to order stuff, I think I ordered from 6 different manufacturers, and they all had ranging dates of delivery. And then everything came in, I think, within 2 days. So we have about 12 rolls of filament left over. And a roll of filament can last a couple of days, depending on how fast someone's printing. So, and when volunteers drop off, like we have a cart outside our office, so they drop off their materials. And then if they tell me ahead of time, I'll leave a spool of filament for them to take. And the plastic sheets I've been able to get a lot from Amazon. They're not very expensive, but again, it was the shipping. So last time I ordered 1,500 at one time to get them delivered. But across the country, they're running into issues with like just the supply chain for this kind of stuff. But initially, the idea was you could get it from Office Depot or Staples. These are just transparency sheets. Now they're online. I've seen people sourcing it with and having big companies. There's actually Coca-Cola donated. It's the same material as Coke bottles. And so they donated like 6,000 pounds of plastic in a big spool. And there's this big rush to try and find companies in the Tampa Bay area that could then cut it down to these size to give out to people. So I spread the word to the manufacturers that I knew, but unfortunately the kind of equipment it needed was very unique. And I think they found someone in Orlando that could do it, and then they outsourced it. But I'm on another Facebook group that's open source COVID PPE supply chain or something like that. So we're definitely networked in with and try and help when we can. But locally we're doing pretty good, but obviously donations wouldn't hurt. So on the St. Pete.
So yeah, how do people donate? Where do they go to donate?
stpetemakers.org. Okay. We have a COVID page, and there's information on there. And that's also where you can go to sign up to be a volunteer, and also to request materials.
Great. And so I want to give a shout out to all the St. Pete makers. When it's not COVID-19, what does St. Pete makers really do? Well, how do they function?
So the majority of our members are just they're just, they're hobbyists. They want to build a new table for their backyard, or like we have equipment that people can use on a membership organization. So Jill presses table saws. It's mostly good old wood shop type equipment. We have a smaller little 3D printing lab. Ironically, though, none of those printers are being used because they were all donated and they're not in good shape. And it's easier for me to just work out of our office. But from the network, from our Facebook group and our meetup page is how we got all the volunteers. We actually are looking to move locations in the next year, and we've been in communication with the folks starting the factory about maybe because it's only 2 blocks from where we are, and seeing if we can find a space, a collaborative space for us all to use there.
Great. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. Well, keep printing for us, and if I can do anything for you, you let me know. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you, Joe.